This recipe was requested by several people, homemade nougat.
Let's see what's cooking, let's get the facts. Let's see what's cooking, it's time for Yo-Yo Max 12.
Hello everyone, first thing you're going to do is prepare your baking dish. That's an 8 by 11 inch baking dish. You're going to line it with plastic wrap. Now, the most important part of this recipe is this part right here. Make sure you spray this with cooking spray or grease it. Make sure you spray it very well. I didn't and ended up paying for it later on. All right, then you need to line this with rice paper. Traditional nougat has a rice paper top and bottom. It just keeps it from sticking. And I didn't have rice paper and I didn't have any place locally to buy it. What I did have were these edible Euros. I bought these in a novelty candy shop a little while ago. And they're essentially just rice paper that has a little bit of edible printing on it. So I lined the bottom of my pan with 200 euro banknotes, edible kind. So it's not going to be quite traditional because it's going to have a little bit of color because of the printing, but still kind of fun. You can call it $1 Million Nougat, I guess, maybe if you wanted to. So cut all the pieces to fit so the entire bottom is covered. All right, next step is to get your stand mixer ready with a whisk attachment, and you're going to place 3 egg whites in there. So get that ready, and then we're going to move over to the stove. That's a large saucepan, and in that pan you're going to place 3 cups of white sugar, 1 cup of honey, 1/4 cup of light corn syrup, 1/4 cup of water. And then you're going to start to stir this over medium-high heat. And then eventually the sugar is going to start to dissolve and it'll start to boil. Now I have a little container of water there with a pastry brush, and you can just brush down the sides of the pan to get rid of any sugar that's stuck there. Now you need to heat this sugar mixture until it reaches 290 degrees Fahrenheit. You check that with the candy thermometer. When it gets to 270, start up your mixer with the egg whites and start beating them. When you get soft peaks, add in 2 tablespoons of sugar and continue to beat until you get stiff peaks. Now in the meantime, that sugar is still heating on the stove. Now if your egg white gets stiff before you reach 290, just stop them from mixing and then switch to the paddle attachment. Once your sugar mixture on the stove gets to 290, take it off the heat, pour it into a container with a spout. I'm using a glass measuring cup, and then just slowly drizzle it in while beating this on medium-high. Now after about 5 minutes, you'll see that it'll almost double in volume. It'll get nice and shiny. You're going to add in some extracts. I added vanilla extract, about 1 teaspoon, and 1/2 teaspoon of orange extract, but you can also add almond extract. And you're going to continue to beat this until it's shiny and very thick. Now the recipe says to beat it until stiff, very stiff and shiny. Now this is not what I would consider to be stiff. It certainly is very thick and very shiny, but not super stiff. Now the reason I don't think you want it to be really stiff is because the next step says that you have to add in some nuts. So what we're going to add in is 1 cup of roasted almonds and then 1 cup of roasted pistachios. And then you're going to stir it in. So if this was super stiff, I don't think you'd be able to fold these in properly. So it worked out, and I just beat it for about 5 minutes until this was really, really thick. And once it starts to cool, you'll notice it really starts to thicken up. Now we're going to pour this into the 8 by 11 inch baking dish. And as you can see, as it cools, it starts to get quite thick, and it happens fairly quickly. Flatten it out with a spatula, and then you're going to cover the top with more rice paper, or in this case, edible 50 euro notes. Cover the whole surface, and then you're going to weight it down with something. I just took another 8 by 11 inch baking dish and put it on top, and then let it sit for several hours at room temperature for it to harden completely. All right, so when it was hardened, I pulled this out of the pan with the plastic wrap, and it came out of the pan with the plastic wrap attached to it. That was fine. My problem was when I tried to pull that plastic wrap off, that plastic wrap was so stuck to the sides of this nougat that it was destroying it. It was kind of breaking it into pieces as I was trying to peel it off. So I took a sharp knife and I just cut off the plastic wrap. So I lost about 1/2 inch all the way around the nougat, and then I sprayed that pan with cooking spray, and then I plopped the nougat back in until I was ready to cut it up. Now you'll notice here I'm trying to cut it with this knife and it's sticking like crazy. Make sure you spray your knife with cooking spray. If you spray your knife with cooking spray, you'll be good. As you can see here, the knife looks kind of greasy. It's because I've sprayed it with cooking spray. And if you use a nice sharp knife, it'll cut into nice little pieces, actually fairly easily. And here's the completed nougat with the banknotes on it. If you've never had nougat before, it tastes a little like marshmallows, kind of, sort of. It is really good. It's candy. It's super sweet. That's why you cut it small pieces, but it's really, really good. And then the rice paper on the top and bottom means that you can pick it up and your fingers don't stick to it. I actually used salted almonds and salted pistachios in mine, so it had kind of a little sweet, salty flavor going on, and it was really good. Now, as you can see, it'll stay nice for maybe an hour or so after you cut it. I had plenty of time to take pictures of this, but it won't stay like this. This stuff is soft, and as it sits, it starts to flatten out. And as you can see, after about 2-3 hours, this is what happened to that plate of those nice little square pieces. It turned into one big blob. So what you have to do, unless you're going to serve it right away, and it should be good on a serving platter for, let's say, an hour or so without flattening out completely. If you're going to try to keep it longer than that, wrap your individual pieces in waxed paper. Now, the waxed paper won't stick to it. When you unwrap these, you'll be able to pull that piece of nougat out without any issues. And then you can store these in a container at room temperature, all nicely wrapped. I love candy making. I have a whole playlist just filled with a whole bunch of different kinds of recipes. So if you want to learn how to make your own lollipops at home, or maybe your own peppermint patties, or some gummies, or even some gumdrops, go ahead and click on your screen.